Okay, listeners and viewers, welcome back to the next episode of the How to Write for a Living podcast. I'm delighted today to have a very, very special guest, the most special guest I've ever had on the podcast. Apologies to
Ever
my
will
previous,
have.
ever will have. Apologies to my previous guest as well, but this is the most special one I'll ever have because my guest today is my beautiful, darling wife, Christine. He's joining me all the way from the kitchen. I'm upstairs. So, Christine, how are you?
I'm very good. I was expecting a bigger intro.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. I forgive you.
Good.
Yes, no, I'm good. I'm good. So guys, I'm Christine, David's wife. So I'm a wedding photographer, proposal photographer, um, in Ireland, essentially. So a little bit about me. So, I actually. After I finished school, I went to teaching college, so a local teaching college in Belfast, and taught for a few years. So trained to become a secondary school, high school teacher, and did that for a few years. A mixture of like 1 year roles and sort of more day to day, like short term subbing, essentially. And it was at that point, whenever I was short term subbing, that I had the opportunity to. I had that bit more time, so I did a night course in Belfast Met. It's a university in Belfast, or a college, sorry, in Belfast, and did a night course in photography, and that sort of allowed me, I suppose, not only the opportunity, but the I suppose the accountability to actually go out and take photos, which I'd always just done as a bit of a hobby and sort of a bit of a passion. So through doing that, I sort of did landscape. That was what I really fell in love with. It sort of like allowed me to go out, with friends at sunset, sort of like take advantage of the beautiful landscapes Ireland has to offer, and then sort of eventually then wanted to go more into portraiture and sort of do like photograph more people. And it was actually through doing that course that I got my first wedding, which I photographed in the summer of 2016. And from then on, I was doing it part time while I was still sort of doing that, part time teaching, sort of day to day. And at a point, I was still doing it part time, but I wasn't probably getting the bookings I would like. So while my darling husband David was sort of pursuing his dreams of sort of building his business, Truck and I, while also doing writing, that's the point whenever I went into full time sort of employment, just an admin sort of office based position. Um, and it was actually in this point that, sorry if I'm waffling, this is my life story here. But it was at that point that I was actually thinking about giving up photography, and it was David who sort of was like, let's try this, let's try something different. And after that, it sort of like propelled me to sort of get more bookings, sort of look more at business, while you, sorry, were learning more about business in your own right. You had actually more tools to help me about with that side of the business side of photography, if that sort of makes sense. So that sort of helped me to actually then, so I went full time in 2021. And I've sort of been going from strength to strength. So that's kind of where I am now.
Yeah. The key takeaway from that story is that basically she was old to me because I didn't let her sell her cameras at the time and kept her going. So just kidding. The,
Basically,
the funny
basically.
thing, the funny thing about that, Christine, is that normally whenever I start the podcast, there's a bit of a preamble and stuff like that, a bit of back and forth. But you just gone straight into your story there. Just told it all, which is great. It's what you had to do. But it's just really funny how you just commandeered it right from the beginning. I love that
That's
as
what I
as my wife.
do.
Yeah.
Well, I knew you were going to ask it
You
of
did, yeah.
me, so there
You
was
did.
no, I mean,
Why waste time?
exactly.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, and I've watched your journey from where you were as a teacher and the various things you went through to the point you're at now as a very successful wedding photographer. He's very, very good at what she does. And that's just not me blowing smoke either, because she's my wife. She's actually extremely good photographer. So make sure you check her out on online, on Google, on social media, that sort of stuff. Very, very good at what she does. So Christine, tell us a little bit about what role does writing play in your week? So obviously we're going to talk about business and solopreneurship and that sort of thing during this call, but in terms of writing, because this is a writing based podcast, what role does that play in your week?
Yeah, of course. So, Writing plays a big role in what I do. Obviously, I think words are really important in how we communicate with our clients, how we communicate with the wider world we're trying to reach, if that sort of makes sense. So I suppose in terms of like weekly, I think that was one of the things you sort of asked, like sort of like breaking it up. So I suppose like weekly or like daily, ways that writing plays a big role is obviously emails, communication with clients. So I think that's really important, and I've kind of honed like what I want to say to clients in those sort of initial emails, or how I want to follow up with them, or what I want to tell them after they've booked me, all that kind of stuff. That's really important. Things like social media captions. So my biggest social media platform is probably Instagram. So then I find it's really important um to communicate value to people through captions. So whether it's telling the story of someone's wedding day, or whether it's actually, giving them advice through the caption about why a certain thing is important, or, just even like a funny anecdote. I think it's important. Gone are the days where you could just post up pretty photos and get loads of reach. I think it's important to think about what's behind that. And I know that I believe social media platforms are sort of more becoming like SEO, where they're a bit more searchable in terms of what you actually write. So captions are very important. I suppose outside weekly, more like sort of like monthly, or even like things I do yearly. Obviously, it's different whenever I'm in my busy season. These things probably take a bit more of a backseat, and it's whenever I'm in my sort of like quieter period or reflection period, I would sort of say. You sort of review what worked well over the year, what you want to do better, and maybe how you want to improve stuff. So in terms of that, with writing, I would say blogs are very important. And I found that has been actually very important to me in my business, in terms of how I've reached potential clients, because I've written blogs that have ranked in the first page, and sometimes even like number one on Google, which has allowed people to find me more organically. Now, I do know that obviously Google has changed things with SEO and with AI, which is sort of, has made that slightly harder, but I think that
Yeah.
is also very important. And then as well as that, things like guides. So I would send couples whenever they inquire, like sort of like price and information guides. After they have booked with me, I'll send them guides about like, you know, important tips and tricks for their wedding day. So then that is also something that takes a lot of writing, and things like that. And I suppose it's now, as I'm coming into my busy, or not busy, my quieter period, where I'm sort of finishing off my edits for the year. Guides are one of the things I've actually been looking at to sort of like make it even better and sort of communicate even more than I already am. So it's something
Yeah.
that I think it's a good way to communicate what we do. But also I think you're one to improve that year on year, because you know what works and what doesn't work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I see all the work you put into that kind of stuff because obviously I live with you and I see the work you're doing every single day. So
Do you?
I do, yeah. I can confirm for anybody else that Christine does put a heck of a lot of work into these guides that she writes and on the website content and her blogs and her captions on a daily basis on Instagram as well. Which is not the kind of work people maybe prioritize anymore. It tends to be things people will hand off to AI. I know that you don't really use AI for your writing so much, or really for anything in particular, apart from maybe editing a little bit with your photos.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I think obviously I think that's what a lot of people have used. ChatGPT for things. Maybe not talking about that an awful lot, because it's not something that I really want to utilize for a number of different reasons. And I think in years to come, um, I think uh, I think you can stand out if you actually put that personal touch in yourself. And I think with especially with captions, Instagram, like social media, is a place where people might find you, and your website as well. That's usually where people are finding you if they're not finding you through word of mouth. So what you're actually writing is really important, I think. And I think sort of either like as I said with captions, I especially with my wedding couples, like I want to like convey their story, or my proposal couples, I want to tell like what has actually happened. I think for them it's probably important, like they want to see their images showcased on my page, but they don't want it to just be like I'm firing off anything. I think it's really important to to take that time and effort in as sort of like a reflection on my affection for them, or like how much I appreciate them. But also there's other ways that you can utilize that, as I say, sort of advice. Like a really good example is engagement photos, which is what I would do. So I sort of say, like, if I'm putting up engagement photos, you could maybe advise, like, this is why we should do engagement photos, like this is the reason for it, kind of thing. So I think it's a way you can stand out as well, rather than just using AI, which I think is becoming maybe increasingly more obvious if people are using AI without it, actually adding their own voice, which really doesn't make you stand out.
Yeah, I totally agree. Whenever you scroll through any social media platform now, like half of the posts are they just sound exactly the same as everybody else's because they just dumped it into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and it spat out some generic dribble all the time. I noticed actually earlier I was watching a video on YouTube, and it was made maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it was very, very, very obvious that it was scripted with ChatGPT. I could tell just by listening to it from the structure of the sentences and the words they were using. It was just a ChatGPT script, and I bet there are so many videos on YouTube now that all sound the same and are so hard to listen to because it's just AI. It's not great. Um, I think that's really important. You're talking about use the word affection in terms of your clients, which I think is a really interesting word to use because I think it says something about you in terms of the way you approach these people because they are clients. They are essentially strangers before you meet them, but then they very often become friends through this process, whether it's a wedding or an engagement photo or whatever else, engagement shoot. I want to talk about the personal touch that you kind of mentioned before, Christine, about the difference that that made for you in a certain point in your journey as a wedding photographer. Because I know that there was a time when you were struggling to get conversions in terms of bookings, so people would maybe reach out to you, and then maybe through whatever means and it wouldn't book you in the end, or maybe go with somebody else. What was the key change that you made that started to really um make those conversions increase quite a lot?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, well, I think first of all, the business I'm in is very personal. So that's why I think a lot of clients, I think they invest a lot in me in terms of they're trusting me with their biggest moments. So their wedding, they're asking the person they love to marry them, all that kind of stuff. So they're putting a lot of trust in me, but I also invest a lot of time in them too. Whether it's them as people, it's actually their day themselves. And I love sort of being invested in their story, and sort of like after the wedding, either sort of keeping in touch with them on social media, or after the wedding, after the proposal or engagement, sort of keeping in touch with them. So there is that sort of personal element to it that I think is quite unique to what I do. I don't think all businesses have that sort of like personal touch. But going back to your question, yeah, there was a time whenever I was sort of, I suppose I had come back from that place where I was about to walk away, but I wasn't being very personal whenever people inquired. So I was sort of saying, here's my pricing. And I believe at that time I was just saying, this is like the coverage for package A, and this is how much it costs. And then this is the coverage for package B, and this is how much it costs. Like, it literally wasn't telling them anything else that was included. It was very much bare bones. And I was just sort of like, here's the price, that's it. So it was very impersonal from my point of view. And you're right, I wasn't seeing a lot of conversion. I think whenever I saw that conversion was whenever I started to invest more of my time then. So putting more work into what I actually said in that email, which goes back to writing, like what I was actually trying to tell them in that initial email, but then also asking them to meet. And I think that's what's so important. So, like sort of like getting to know them. As I say, weddings are very personal. A photographer, I can be with a couple, for 12 hours of their day, and the bride or whoever's getting married, the groom or the couple, they will likely see me more. then they will see a lot of other people, including their important family members, on their wedding. So it's very much that personal element to it. You have to have that relationship, you have to have that rapport. So I realized that actually I wanted to get to know these people. I wanted to get to know what they wanted from their wedding day. I wanted to get to know what they like to do outside of, just themselves, like how they met. I wanted to, all these things that's going to shape their wedding day. And things that would help me capture their wedding day. So I sort of found once I put more of that, effort in and wanted to give more of my time and a bit more of myself, then I was seeing more conversion. And a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, whenever people meet you and they invest time in you. Obviously, some people can't meet in person, like my international clients, so it would be like over Zoom or FaceTime, or even, couples at home, it maybe just doesn't work with location. So, I think once they invest that time in you and you invest that time in them, a lot of the time you see a lot higher conversion. And a lot of people then want to book with you. And it also gives an opportunity that I can show them, like I have sample albums made up of weddings. I can show them the photos themselves because obviously whenever they're on the website or maybe Instagram, sometimes the quality doesn't always come through. So and you can chat through to them. So I had a meeting with a couple last night, and I was sort of chatting like what's important with their day. And I think a lot of the time, back in days gone by, like you and I were married 10 years ago. It was very different. There was no Instagram. We booked our photographer who was very good, but we booked him based on that he photographed your best man's wedding the year, like a year or two before that. So it wasn't as much, it was just sort of like he showed up and there wasn't as much input, I think, from the couple. Whereas now they're sort of like, this is what we want to do. We don't
Mm.
want to be away for ages on our wedding day. And I work with them and sort of say, well, I will totally do that, but I will sort of try and suggest, sort of say, like, this is what I think you might want as well, and sort of work around. So it's almost like it's like a bit of a partnership.
I was going to use that word. Yeah, it's a good partnership.
Yeah, so it's sort of like they have ideas of what they want to do. They don't want to spend an awful lot of time away, but I'm advising them, well, if you want certain photos or if you want to go certain locations, like this is what I would advise doing. And then it's sort of like working together.
Mm.
But I think as well as that, even in more recent years, once I've done sort of like coaching courses and stuff, that's whenever I started developing guides. So even at that point, whenever I said, I would like to meet up, I was still just sort of giving them the bare bones of what I offered. Sort of, it was like, this is the coverage you get, this is the price. Whereas now I have guides. So I sort of tell them like a little bit about myself in those. I tell them about my approach. I sort of like the packages I include, there's a lot more that's included than just how many hours I'm there on the day. So they sort of have all of that. And even for my proposal couples, I have a proposal guide for them. So I also give them like location details. I have like photos from certain locations. I've like advice on what to wear in the shoot, all that kind of stuff. So it's giving them like loads of information beforehand so that they can actually say, oh, actually, I like that. There's obviously your portfolio within that because I can see you obviously include photos within this information. So they're getting to see more portfolio. And then from then, I'm finding there's more people even just getting back to you and saying, thanks so much for this. We'll get back if we want it. So at least I know they've got it. And you're sort of getting, more conversion again. So,
Yeah, I suppose you're the expert, so people are coming to you. They've obviously never been married before. Well, usually
well,
well, some of them have, yeah, but for the most
yeah,
part, they're
maybe.
younger couples that haven't been married before. And they're coming to you, and you do know better than them about what the day's going to look like and that sort of thing. So if you are the person who's reaching back and saying, "This is what to expect. Here's all the different things you need to think about," as a younger couple who's getting married, they probably haven't thought about half that stuff before in the past. So this is all new to them. And I can imagine if I was making a big high ticket purchase from somebody, like essentially like a wedding photography package, I would want as much information as I could possibly get to kind of make a really informed decision about it. And there'd be so many things you wouldn't have thought of that maybe the coach or the photographer would have thought of. So I can imagine how that would really put someone at ease if the person they're maybe going to be buying something from or investing in is going to, walk them through the process in such depth like that, which I think is amazing. I remember back at the time, whenever you first said, I'm going to meet these people for coffee, I was kind of thinking, that's nuts. Because, like, you're going to drive, like, well, whatever it would have been, like 40 minutes or so, meet the people for coffee, probably pay for their coffee and stuff, and then come home again afterwards. And it always seemed to me like such a big time commitment, and not obviously a big monetary commitment, but it was your time. And they could still end up saying no anyway after that point. So it was brave of you at the time to do that. And you kind of could see something that I couldn't see. I was kind of thinking of that as like, oh, that's gonna be a waste of time if they say no. I want to do like the bare minimum. And again, this was like back in like just post pandemic kind of time as well, I think. So I think it was anyway. So that meeting people in person didn't really feel as natural anymore. So that was a big step that you made, and that definitely paid dividends for you in terms of the bookings you got. And I want to talk about that personal touch that can apply maybe to every business, every solopreneurship in particular. Why do you think that a personal touch like that and the things you mentioned is more important than ever at this point in 2025 and beyond?
Well, yeah, like I think it's more it's how you stand out, I would say. So I think like 2025, we're almost to 2026. Like you'll hear a lot of people talking about personal brands. So a lot of the time, and I can only use photography as an example, but you also do coaching, which is also very personal. So people are investing in you. Like there's loads of photographers out there, but it's you that they're investing in. So actually you make the difference. And I think with something like photography, like Northern Ireland, there's loads of talented photographers in Ireland itself. Like there's so many talented photographers. But what they're doing is they want you for how not only you see and capture the day, but how you will be on the day as well. I think it's also that like I think with photos, and I say this to my couples as well, anytime I'm sort of photographing them and stuff, I say if you feel uncomfortable now when you're being photographed, even if it's this beautiful photograph, you're going to look back at that photo and say, I felt so uncomfortable. If you have amazing wedding photos, but you had a terrible experience with your photographer, if they were rude or if they just made you feel uncomfortable or anything, you will have a tainted experience with them. You'll associate it with that feeling. So I think personal touches are really important, in that people are investing in you, not just your work, not just your craft,
Mm.
because there's other talented photographers out there that they could book. Um, so, but sorry, I'm just looking at my notes because I had made a few notes.
Okay. Be
But
prepared.
I think it's also as well with the personal touch. It's important that I think so. Photography is a high ticket item. So again, they're investing a lot in you, and they're putting a lot of trust in you. So I think it's as well, it's important that we serve these clients before they've even given us any money. So
Mm.
that's where I think like guides are really important. That's where I think that meeting them for coffee is also very important so that they may not book me, but we'll have talked through their wedding day and what they want, and they may have asked my opinion because they're like, oh, you know better, what do you think we should do? So you'll have given them a lot of advice, a lot of ideas for what they could do before they've even given you any money. And I think that's really important because I think if you just give them that advice after, it feels very much you're only giving them that if they give you something back. So I
Mm.
think it's important to serve them beforehand. Another way I do that is if people inquire, there's like a free guide that they can sort of download with like tips and stuff. But yeah, I think that personal touch is really important. Before the call, David and I were actually talking because we talk a lot and we're invested in each other's businesses. But we talk about this whole, I saw this catchphrase about years ago where it was like under promise, over deliver. And I don't think that's necessarily a good business practice in that I think clients should know exactly what they're getting from me. They should know what they're booking and what I offer. So you should, but again, I want to over deliver. So I want them to be even though they know what they're getting at the end of it, I want them to say, oh my goodness, like Christine, you did so much for us. We're so grateful. I want to go above and beyond. So a way I've found of doing that is just to not that they'll ever expect it but to sort of like go above and beyond. So I think that Christmas is a really nice time for you to sort of like sort of show that affection for your couples. So and I started doing this last year. So I sort of think of like what can I give back to them because they've given like a lot to me. So last year I did like personalized Christmas cards. I sent every client. That was like the first year I did it. And this year I'm sort of thinking about what I want to do. So I think it's sort of like going above and beyond, but also they know what to expect. So you're almost just like,
Yeah, the phrase you used was overpromise and overdeliver
yeah,
from
I
the
think
beginning.
so. I think
Yeah.
so. So it's yeah, you want to give them the best, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think the whole personal touch is very important, but it comes in a lot of different ways, and it can be expressed in a lot of different ways. But yeah, I think business um is very personal. So, and I think more so in the industry that I'm in, it's not clear cut. So I think it's important to have that sort of personal touches as well.
I've heard it referred to in the past as like the delight factor. So like the delight and surprise, the thing they don't expect to get, which elicits that kind of response in people where they're like, I expected to get my wedding photos from Christine, but instead I got the wedding photos, but I also got this beautiful box with like prints in them, like physical prints people don't do anymore. So that's a really cool thing to get. And then at Christmas I got this little package as well, and just to show that they weren't just like a client, but they were someone who actually meant something to you, and you still think about them in that sense. So I love all that about your approach, and I do think that is why, for instance, you have like all 5-star reviews on Google, because you do take that extra step that people maybe wouldn't bother to do because they want to move on to the next person. And I think that's something that all solopreneurs in any industry can really take inspiration from, to think about how you can surprise and delight your clients or your customers by just doing something they don't expect, over promising what you're going to do and then over delivering on that over promise, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. So I think it's pretty cool approach. And how do you see, Christine, like one person businesses evolving over the next few years? Because obviously you've mentioned about personal brands, you talked about going the extra mile. How do you think things within wedding photography and just in general for solopreneurs is going to develop in the coming years?
Oh,
Ooh,
oh.
was that a surprise and delight?
I thought you were asking me specifically. I think I think AI will have I think AI will have an effect, but I think with things like photography, I don't think AI will take your job, essentially, as in, I don't think AI, like, I think people, when AI is on the rise, I think people will yearn for more human interaction. So I think actually,
I agree.
um, I think obviously with weddings, you can just go and get married. You don't necessarily need a wedding photographer, realistically. Obviously, I think they're very important because I think they're
Do
obviously,
you think that?
but as in, but it's not an absolute necessity. Like you could
Yeah.
just go get married. Um, but I think things like photographers, I don't think that people would want a robot to take their wedding photos. I don't think people will want their wedding photos to just be AI. I don't see it coming. I can see it. Obviously, it's being used within the industry for certain things like editing and stuff, but I don't see that evolving. I suppose as well in terms of how it could evolve in the next few years. As I said, I think it was as I was saying before, things like um AI having a change on SEO, things like social media. I think what's important and what I found in terms of how people, because I think as small business owners, as solopreneurs, we are very much at the mercy, if that's the right word, of big corporations who make decisions, about things that we use. So things like obviously 10 years ago, everyone was going on social media. There was a lot of, back in that time, there was a lot of photographers who maybe rallied against and thought we don't need social media. And then their businesses, they
Mm.
obviously then their businesses kind of faded out. And I think now more than ever, it's important to sort of be diverse in how you're found. So as I say, things like SEO, I still think is important. Because as I say, I've written blog posts that have ranked that gets me a lot of a lot of business, a lot of inquiries.
Tell me about that story real quick. Just explain what
Of
you mean by that, because you mentioned it a couple of times. I want people to understand where you're coming from.
course. So I do a lot of surprise proposals in Ireland. So obviously one of the most probably the most iconic views at the minute are in Ireland are the Cliffs of Moher. So I did my first proposal there in 2021. David actually came down. We stayed for a few days and sort of scouted and stuff. That was lovely. Funny story actually about the Cliffs of Moher because when David and I had our 1 year wedding, or 1 year wedding, no, sorry, 1 year anniversary of dating, David surprised me by taking me down to the Cliffs of Moher. So I always sort of find it very funny that that's a place that I've frequented a lot for work, um, because that was a place that I first went with you. But going back to your question, so basically, I photographed this lovely couple. They were called Laura and Matt. They were fantastic. They were so special. I photographed their surprise proposal at the Cliffs of Moher, and I wrote a blog about it. And then that blog just got
Traffic.
a lot of traction.
Mm.
And then obviously I've updated it in the years past, and sort of added different couples and as things sort of change. But that blog ranks, if you type in Cliffs of Moher proposal or Cliffs of Moher photo shoot, I rank very highly there. And I wrote then another blog about another place that's very popular called Hoth, which is just outside Dublin. So I wrote another blog there. So again, um, if you if you search Hoth proposal or proposal at Hoth, my blog will be one of the first. So because people are maybe Googling things like that, obviously I think that's a real millennial thing to Google. I think Gen Z don't really Google things anymore.
Mm.
So but yes, I ranked and I have seen a lot of business come through there. And obviously the blog post that I wrote, I have updated them. I have added more information. I have added, more pictures, more all that kind of stuff. So that has helped them to rank even further, if that makes sense. So that's I sort of think it's sort of having different streams of ways they can find you. So if SEO, I think it's just about not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Mm.
SEO has been very effective for me, but as I say, it's probably getting less and less effective. So then it's thinking about things like social media. And again, I think social media, I think people still use it, but I don't know. I still think in 5 to 10 years we'll still be using it. It might just be slightly different. But I know that like Gen Z would maybe use TikTok more to find things. And I know photographers who have used TikTok. I personally don't use TikTok. But it may be something that, again, if you're using social media, maybe not having all your eggs in one basket, whereas I mainly use Instagram. So it might be a thing of diversifying there. But I also think um it's just about other things. Like I say, in person's really important. So how I market myself as well is doing like wedding fairs. I do all that kind of stuff to get my face in front of people and talk to couples, and that's another good way. It helps me also build effective relationships with other vendors and other suppliers, we would call them. So I've built up really good friendships with people, which also helps with my referrals. So if they come to another photographer and maybe they're not free and they could recommend me, or if they've booked something else beforehand, like a venue or a hairstylist or a celebrant, a humanist celebrant, they can refer on people that they've worked with before. So having those vendor relationships is really important. So I think it's about sort of spreading out what you do in multiple different ways for how people can find you, so that it's not they can only find you in one way. And if that one way goes away tomorrow, that's your business gone. So it's
Mm.
about diversity.
I
And
think
as I
you've
said,
Oh, sorry, I
sorry.
just want to interrupt real quick because I think you've touched something really important there about the power of like collaboration as well, which obviously I've seen the benefit of on Substack and everything else, and I've met really good friends, people here are now friends on Substack, obviously, and you've got to meet some of them in real life as well, which is cool. But I think it's really important that we can find other people within our industry to work with and can be our support, can have our backs, and we can have theirs. Um, I think as solopreneurship keeps developing, the most important thing you can do is try and network and make friends within the industry that you're in, rather than try and go it alone and try and, dog eat dog kind of thing, climb over everybody else to get to the top. I think you have to help each other out, and a rising tide lifts all boats, kind of situations. So, but
Exactly.
yeah,
And
so
I think as well with solopreneurs, what people don't know as well, or what couples maybe don't know, is it can be quite lonely. As
mm,
in, if I'm at a, so it's very different, our jobs, but so I'm out and about, I'm traveling, I'm meeting people. But if I'm not doing that, I am, at home editing. I am, even if I do travel to places like the Cliffs of Moher, and that's a few hours away from our house, so in summer I'd be staying over. That's not glamorous either, so it's sort of like you're staying away on your own for a night, maybe eating a McDonald's. So I think as well, building those relationships with people, it's building a community, but it's also um we're not in traditional jobs where we work in an office and we're having banter and crack while we work.
just to clarify for anyone who's not from Northern Ireland, crack is a phrase we use for having fun, not the drug. So just if you're wondering what if we were doing something we shouldn't be doing at home here, that's what Christine means by that.
Oh
Just
yes,
just just to
sorry.
clarify that real quick before we carry on.
Just to clarify. But yeah, those are our colleagues. Those are the people that we work with. So it's good to, I think it's good to have those relationships, because that's where you can find real community. Otherwise, if you're doing it on your own, it's very lonely.
Mm.
And yeah, as you said, like a rising tide,
Lifts all boats.
lifts all boats. So you're helping everyone out as well, and it's important. Community over competition. I think we would talk about it a lot here.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Um, do you want to always be a photographer? Is that kind of where you see yourself just for the foreseeable future, or can you see yourself doing anything else, maybe linked to photography in future?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about this, and yeah, I think as long as I'm able, I would love to be a photographer. I was thinking about this, and obviously, I think I would like to diversify, but and I'll touch on that in a wee second. But photography is very labor intensive on your body, so you can be carrying your cameras for around 12 hours on your feet for most of that time. So after a wedding day, they talk about the wedding hangover, the next, and especially if you're doing, maybe two weddings, like a back to back, or even a triple, what we would call a triple wedding weekend. So, it's quite hard on your body. So I think in order to do it for a long time, I think I want to look after myself a bit more. And I think that's something I'm learning about myself. Sometimes you can do so much for other people and you're not looking after yourself. So, and David will replay this back to me, no doubt, whenever I say this. But I think I need to be more strict about going to the gym and work on my upper body strength to sort of help my body work with the amount of stress it can be put under on a wedding day. So I think that's really important, and that will help me have more longevity within this.
I can
Um,
confirm that the weight of Christine's photography bag is something else. Like if you go to lift it for her, out of the car or something, it's remarkably heavy, and you're carrying that around for a lot of the day. So yeah, you definitely do need to look after
Yeah,
yourself.
and I've seen other friends in the industry say that where you need to look after yourself. So I think that's important. And even just things like posture, being hunched in front of a computer, editing, you need to look after yourself there. But like photography it's such, I can't understate it enough how much of a privilege it is. Like that's why I think I have such affection for my clients, because I get so invested in them. I'm, you know, I'm with them whenever they say their vows. I'm with them whenever they ask the person to marry them.
Those are
They
big
trust
moments in
me.
someone's life, that
Yeah,
yeah.
massive moments that you're being invited in. So it's such a privilege. So, I do want to keep doing it for as long as I can. And it's such a like a privilege to be asked, but it's also such a rush for me. Like, sometimes, like, obviously the imposter syndrome hits massively sometimes, and you're like, oh, I'm terrible. But then sometimes you look at the photos you take and you're like, wow, did I actually take that? Like, that's crazy. So I think it can be such a rush when you get the shot, you get that money shot, and you're like, wow, and you know that that is going to be something that they will look back in, like your photo will be
Mm.
something that they'll look back in 10 to 20 years time as well, because that will be how they remember their day as well. So I always think like with our wedding photos, it's only whenever you look back at them, you're like, oh, do you remember that happens? Like so and so did that. And
Mm.
you wouldn't remember it unless you maybe it's or your memory's jogged by the photo. So
Mm.
I think that that's such a privilege. But at the same time, I think it would be important to diversify. So I would love to go into like a bit more of education. So and again, David's gonna like play this back to me, but I
That's
started
basically why I'm doing this podcast today, so I have this stuff on record so I
it's
can
like
use in
ammo,
future.
is it?
Yeah, yeah, basically.
Um, but yeah, I started this Substack maybe about 2 years ago,
When
and
was the last time you posted anything on it,
oh, I
Christine?
don't know.
Recently?
Oh, ha ha ha. It's so funny. But yeah, so I started it and I was really excited about it. Really excited, had really good ideas for it. Like I wrote again, it's one of those things that like I love writing stuff. For me, writing doesn't come overly naturally. I have to sort of like really think about it and sort of
But
be in,
you're good at it though. Like I've watched you kind
yeah.
of no, I've watched you kind of like evolve as a writer as well, like alongside everything else. Like you're definitely so much better than you used to be, and your writing is now genuinely very, very good. So,
Yeah,
um,
no, but I think it's kind of like I need to be in that sort of headspace. But I remember writing some really good pieces for Substack and really enjoying it and having ideas for what I could do. And then just sort of like wedding season, whenever I'm in that sort of time, there's
it's hard to
not
get the time to do
it's
it. Yeah,
hard to get the time. Because I think that's the thing as a wedding photographer, my week, all my week changes. And even like my year. So like wedding season is typically, I would say like March, April to October here. But like last year I was really busy in November, whereas this year I'm not as busy, like in terms of shooting. So it's sort of like it's not even like I know every year is going to be I'm going to be busy from this block of time. It can change year on year as well. So I think that sort of I find that hard to then be what's the right word, like
to
to
like
show
plan
up
it.
all the time. Yeah,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be oh my goodness, that word.
To be
Yeah,
consistent.
to be consistent. There we go. We finish each other's sandwiches. Sorry, that was a Frozen reference. I thought Dave would.
Oh,
Um,
didn't get there in time.
so, but yeah, so I think I would love to do a bit more of that and sort of like evolve in doing that. And then obviously things like diversifying my income. I know people obviously say that's a good way to help with a solopreneurship is to actually not have, as they say, not with all your SEO and all your marketing, not to have the eggs in one basket, but also not to have all your income in one basket as well. So I'd love to sort of like do a bit more education, and through that sort of build up things like email lists and all that sort of stuff too. So yeah, I'd love to do more of that. As I say, I was really passionate about it, but it just didn't work. And then this year again, um, yeah,
Just
there was
over
a few
time.
things that happened. Yeah, just time sort of went away. So I'm hoping to really look at that probably in January, February kind of time, and sort of like have a like sort of sit down and think about it. As well as that, there's other photographers in like Northern Ireland or worldwide who do like workshops or sell shoots. So I'd love to do something like that, sort of more in person
Mm.
as well. Um,
I've always said that's a good combination for you of like obviously your photography ability plus your like teaching background as well. If you started
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
I think the education stuff would lean more into my teaching background, which I
Mm.
think that's really would be really cool to sort of use that as well. But yeah, so that's where I sort of like I do want to be a photographer, and I think as well in terms of education, I think if I want to diversify into education, I can't like you to be credible in the education space, you also have to still be active within the field. So
Mm.
I think if I'm wanting to educate people about photography and tell people about it, I still need to be photographing it, so it wouldn't, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
Because it changes all the time as well. So you need to
oh,
like
it
stay up to
does.
date.
Yeah, I
Mm.
mean, like 2025, 2026, like it's very different since after the pandemic, like what people want from their weddings and stuff like that. So yeah, you have to sort of still, and I think though, if I was talking to people about it and doing all that, I would still want to be photographing it.
Yeah.
Because yeah, as I say, that's where those relationships with people is just the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I'm just gonna ask you one more question, Christine, because I've kept you for quite a while now, down there in the kitchen.
You kept me for how many years? And I'm
Um,
counting.
lifetime sentence. What is one, what's one gold nugget of advice you want listeners to take away from this conversation today? So, if they forget everything else that you said, they won't, but if they
How
did,
dare they?
I know what's like one piece they could take away from this today.
Find yourself a husband who will interview you on their podcast.
He's out there
Sorry.
somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I married you, you didn't have a podcast, so
Yeah.
um, I don't. I think one piece of advice. Oh, that's really tough. Um,
As if you didn't know this question was coming, that I
I
told you I was going
know,
to ask you this.
I know, but you said I could figure it out in the call. Can I give like a few?
Yeah.
Okay. This could be like Ryan in the office where he does like loads of different lines and he's like, use whichever one's best.
Yeah.
Um, I would say first and foremost, trust your abilities, but always be willing to learn.
Hmm.
So I think you have to have a baseline talent or, something that sort of starts you in whatever industry that you're in. So believe in yourself as well. So if you don't believe in yourself, no one will believe in you. But also don't think that you know it all. I think that what I'm learning about is that as people invest in you, so people are investing a lot of money in me, I want to invest in also in myself with education. So knowing how I can make my business better, how can I make my process better for my couples, um, all that kind of stuff, learn how I can do business better so it helps me as well. So believe in yourself, but be willing to always learn because I think it's ever evolving. I think what you know now could be out of date in a few years' time. So it's important to keep educating yourself. And then the other thing I would probably say is surround yourself with people who will also lift you up.
Hmm.
So that sort of community, people who will help you, but also will be great champions for you as well. And I find that that is also like, as I say, my industry, like vendors, my industry peers are great champions, but also I find my couples are great champions. And you will
Hmm.
find that your clients, if you do a really good job for them, whatever field you're in, they will be your biggest champions. And sort of if you are doing that where you're over promising, over delivering, going above and beyond for them, they will and you like not that you expect it, but they will naturally tell people about you because they're so bowled over. So yeah, trust in yourself, always be willing to learn and surround yourself with people who will boost you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. And I think it applies to
Well,
ev
thanks. I'm such a great advisor.
you are a great advisor. I think it applies to every industry though as well. It's like writing and solopreneurship and any kind
Totally.
of creative field. Like you do need people who are going to have your back and support you and give you a bit of guidance and a bit of help and encouragement as you go along. But I think everything you said today, Christine, like people can take. You obviously talk about wedding photography in particular, but so much of the stuff you said is applicable to other industries too. And even if you were saying about how sometimes you take photos and then you look at them later and you're like, wow, I can't believe I took that photo. It's so good. In like a non-braggy sense. I think it's the same for writers too, because sometimes you can write something and come back to it later and read it and be like, I can't believe I wrote this. It's like really, really good. Or it can be like it's absolutely awful. Can't believe I thought
Yeah,
this was good
but
at the time.
can I
Of
use you as an example? So, for
course.
instance, like, so I can I just brag about David for a wee second?
Of
So
course you can on this podcast. Please
so
do.
first of all, can I just say David has a real podcast voice? He talks so much slower in this podcast than he does in real
You
life.
think so?
Yes, you do. But so obviously we're both creatives, but I am so bowled over by your books. Obviously I have read some ones that you guys haven't read. Can I just also say one of his books is coming out in December 15th. It's going to be amazing. Great Christmas present for someone. But I am bowled over that whenever I read your stuff because I just think, wow, I could never, like, I don't know. I'm so amazed by how you create all these storylines, how you create all these characters. Obviously, I've named one, which was awesome. But like how you create this and like even like with like your Ullin series, so you can see the two books behind him, Soulburn Talisman, Empress of Nim, like you're even like, oh, I'm thinking about what's going to happen in the third one, and I'm just bowled over by how you can have that creative process because it's so different to what I do. But yeah, whenever I read your stuff, I'm like, wow, like how did he like come up with this? How did he write this? So you're fantastic, at what you do.
I
If I don't
appreciate
tell
that.
you now.
Appreciate that. I'll transfer you through your money later for that
Ha ha
that we
ha.
review on the podcast. But it's the same for me because whenever I see your photos, like basically every single time, I still can't really quite believe that you're the person who took them. Like I know how good you are at photography, but it's still I've seen you go from just starting photography and not really knowing what you were doing at the start to being this genuinely professional expert photographer and really, really, really good at what you do. So it's the same for me. Like, and I've got to watch that process with you. And also just about the books, you talk about like how do I come up with these things, but the substitute is literally based on a substitute teacher, which you were for quite a long time.
Well, yes,
Um,
I am your muse and
you
inspiration.
are basically
I am basically your Travis Kelsey to your Taylor Swift.
okay, and you're going to work at Taylor Swift reference in there
Exactly. I
somewhere.
had to work it in. But yes, no, the substitute I take all credit for because, you know,
You should. And even the book that's coming out now, Humbug, in December, is based on a situation that you and I both experienced.
yeah.
The opening scene is something that literally happened to us.
You want
Obviously,
to tell them?
I won't tell anybody about it just yet. All I'll say is it did happen to us in real life, minus all the horror and the scariness of it, but the actual setting kind of situation did happen to us in real
It
life. So
did, and it was
it was weird.
it was weird.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's where that comes from. So you're kind of saying like, how do I come up with this stuff? But you were literally involved in how some of these things came to life in the first place. But I appreciate that. I do appreciate obviously what you're saying, and obviously it goes both ways. But yeah, again, this is really, really good today, Christine. Like, I was sort of nervous before doing this podcast in a weird sort of way because I don't know why. But it's been really fun, and I think everything you said today has been so useful for anyone who's listening in any industry who wants to go the extra mile for their clients or their readers or whatever. So thank you very much for
No
sharing that.
problem.
Where can people find you online? Where's the best place people can go to check out your stuff and maybe book you or something in the future?
Oh, book me. Yes, please. The best place to find me. So my business name is just Christine McIlroy Photography. So my website is just christinemcilroyphotography.com. And my Instagram is just at Christine McIlroy Photography. Those are probably the two best places to find me in terms of what I you'll see Instagram so winter is usually a time whenever I update my website and all that kind of stuff, so I will probably be adding some like 2025 weddings to it, like either in December or January. So whereas Instagram you probably see more of my recent work, and that's where I show up. As I said, personal branding is really important, so I put up like personal snippets of our life and what I'm doing sort of behind the scenes as well. So that's where you can probably see a bit more of me. Um, Maybe you'll see me in TikTok in future, who knows?
And maybe you'll see it. Maybe you'll appear on Substack at some point too and start posting there again,
Yeah,
which would
no,
be
I
great.
will. I
Yeah.
will. This will be the accountability.
I'm gonna put your Substack handle in the post so people can see it and can subscribe to you if they want to. So again, if you're watching this or you're finding it on Substack in the email, make sure you subscribe to Christine's publication and she'll maybe put more stuff into it in future now that she's got the kick up the butt that she needs to do it. So um but yeah, again, Christine, thank you so much. Really, really enjoyed this chat and I will see you in the kitchen really soon.
Yeah. See you soon. Thanks so much. It's been such a blast.